Hiya, and welcome back to Far Beyond the World, the game that just reaffirms the fact that twinks are aggressive and therefore terrifying. Okay, so I've thought over it and I've decided to do the tier list because that's still going to happen tonight. It's going to be on a separate stream. So, hello. So I got it all set up. What I'm going to do is, right after we're done here, I'm going to hop off, get everything set up, and then quickly hop right back on for the tier list. Let's just jump right into it. I rejoin Ranok at his side and we take our leave, with the wolf waving at his friends without turning back. They're quite the characters, I say once we're clear out of earshot. I can't decide if I like Aerof or not, but Taliesin seems alright. Do you think they're actually into each other, or was it all just silly talk? The wolf does not respond, continuing to walk brutally at a quick pace. He seems buried in thought, his expression betraying some deep concern, and I resign myself to simply following him in silence. I mean, he was just told flat out that his father might be a chief no more, and considering how unpopular Vither actually is, the whole situation spells trouble. In truth, this showcase perfectly describes how detached the village became not only from the wider world, but the forest itself. Everyone I've met was convinced Vither had plenty of support. It must be odd to be met with the cold reality of things, and it's clear Ranok struggles with it. I can understand that after an assassination attempt, they made a purge in the village, but removing all of the dissidents might have had an unintentional side effect. The chief and his advisor effectively created a feedback loop hidden inside a bubble of their own making. With only their supporters at their side, whatever they do is met with immediate approval, even if the wider society doesn't seem all that receptive. This means that over the years they grew complacent and emboldened, to the point that any sign of disagreement might be seen as a challenge to their rule. I can't believe I'm thinking this, but perhaps Aldris isn't entirely off the mark here. Especially with how Vither seems to be seen as a grubby wolf lining his pockets at the tribe's expense. This is all indeed quite troubling, and just as I'm trying to process all of this newfound information, I can see Ranok is attempting the same. I simply allow him some distance and keep to my own thoughts, especially since there's a lot to unpack here. Their exchange about Tano piqued my curiosity about the infamous fallout. How is Ranok an insulted party? I keep myself entertained with speculations, observing as the milestones slowly pass by. Ad Astra? What about it? Were they friends who fell over some political scheme? Or forbidden lovers who came to a tragic end, or broke up due to the comedy of misunderstandings? Whatever their story is, I very much would like to hear it. At least my preoccupied mind keeps my attention of being tired and allows me to keep up with the wolf. But as always, their resolve quickly melts away, and as I can see the window between each of the stones we pass stretch out. By the time of our first break, we barely covered 6 miles. I'm already falling behind. You sure you're okay? He finally speaks up in a worried tone, passing me some jerky and a biscuit. I bite the stringy meat, pulling at it as if it were taffy, trying to rip out a chunk. I'm fine, just not sure if I can match your expectation. Insert song that make people cry. I mutter, chewing on the gummy meat. This seems to be much harder than I thought, and my thighs feel on fire. It's the rolling hills. Ranok bops his head towards the road. This part is quite the workout even for us. He forces a smile. True, I can see it slithering up and down between the trees, but I think the main culprit is the backpack. I kick it begrudgingly. I'd do much better if we didn't have so much to carry. Well, I can take it off your back if it's too much. Might as well carry me then. I snicker, looking at him with pity. Seriously, what was the point of bringing me here if I can't carry my own weight? I sigh, taking a long chug of wine. I'll have to tough this one out. At least I broke those in. The wolf looks towards my shoes as I wiggle my feet. I have to stop to adjust them much less than before. He smiles, giving me a gentle, encouraging nuzzle. You'll be alright. He croons, but I look to him with worry. Are you, though? The conversation with those two have left you quieter than usual. Don't worry, it just gave me lots to think about. Same. I chuckle, trying to maintain some sense of levity. Seems our situation keeps getting worse and worse. You remember when your father walked in on us, and after a whole night of waiting for your return, you told me I didn't know the half of it? You weren't kidding. And now that it turns out you don't know the other half, seems like we're walking through this perfect shitstorm completely blind. Eloquently put. He forces some amusement to his scoff, but it's clear he's deeply troubled. We'll be fine. I try to encourage him, bumping into his shoulder. We'll get the supplies and restore some faith in your father's leadership. Yeah. Somehow those words seem to have triggered him and his mood took a greater dip, but the wolf doesn't give me a chance to prod. Let's not tarry then. A lot hinges on this mission. I nod, jumping back to my feet, and soon enough we're on the road again. The worst part of the journey comes just after noon, when both my feet and legs are in unspeakable agony. We slow down to a crawl, and Ranok offers to take an additional break every now and then, but I refuse. It hurts, but I feel that if we stop now, I won't get on the move again. Besides, Vol was right. I can't continue to be Ranok's liability. If I want any of the wolves to see true value in me, to see me as someone reliable, I need to pull my weight and simply know when stuff has to be done without complaining. Somehow, the image of Vol's disapproving look eggs me on, and I push through this torturous phase. Where's it at? Here we go. Surprisingly, within a few hours, the pain goes away and I proverbially walk it off. But despite this small victory, by the time we break camp for the night, I find out that we only covered 19 miles. I gaze at the milestone in disappointment. SB21. At least we're nearly there. You need any help? I speak in an unintentionally hushed tone. I lack energy to even speak, and the wolf picks up on that. No, I'm all good. You just sit down and relax. In truth, I know he's just saying that, but I don't have any willpower left in me to object, even if it makes me feel bad. I simply settle down, watching as the wolf gets everything set up on his own. I feel so useless watching him go about his task with absolute ease, but the rhythm of his work is also so soothing to watch. My eyes get incredibly heavy, and I let them rest for just a moment. I think I drifted off, because once I open my eyes again, everything is done. I catch Ranok, who's now only in his pants, stepping out of the greenery with the bulging wineskin. Thank God. He's wearing pants. Cilio traumatized me. Where were you? I mumble sleepily. There's a small spring nearby. Since we ran out of wine, I stocked up on water. Oh, good thinking. My nose twitches at a lovely smell coming from the fireplace. What's that? Caught another rabbit, and found some wild carrots. He says with a satisfied smile, and I look to the bubbling pot with worry. How long was I out for? Not that long. The bugger practically walked in on me. He laughs, and I scramble to my feet to approach the pot. With any luck, this should be our last meal on the road, so I want it to be filling to give you a little boost. Yeah, I'm just going to pull up the sensor bar and just leave it there. Let me find it. Where is it? Now, worry about it later. Thanks. I say through a smile and take a seat near the fire as he ladles a generous portion into a bowl. The warmth feels so wonderful on my skin, and I take hold of the hot stew with glee. So warm. I'm sorry it's Rabbit again. He must be getting pretty sick of it by now. Oh, shush. I scoff at him in amusement, taking a greedy spoonful. I'm grateful for anything you provide and simply glad to fill my belly. We enjoy the meal in silence as I'm still slowly trying to collect myself from the short-lived slumber. But the stew hits the spot perfectly. I don't think I was ever this tired, but somehow this exhaustion feels nice. Makes me feel accomplished, and I appreciate moments of respite like this so much more. Okay. Trusting you. It's like this whole experience put color into the world around me. I finish my bowl with a sigh of contentment, licking my fingers clean and watching the wolf strip last bits of meat from the bones. Once we're both done, we put away the dishes and splay ourselves comfortably against the nearby tree. I take a deep gulp from the water skin, crisp spring water quenching my thirst after a long day's march.
thirsty.
Kaylin be like.
I'm thirsty. Refreshing.
We sit, huddled together with me idly poking at the flames with a stick. The night is cool but not too cool, with the fire pit gently caressing our skins. I give us some time to simply enjoy the moment, but once I see him slowly dozing off with his head now fully resting atop of mine, I decide to speak up. You didn't have to go to all this trouble. We could have eaten what's left and call it a night. It's the least I could do. He shrugs and I place a paw on his shoulder. I know you're all about putting up a front, but I bet you two are at least a little bit tired. He smiles, pulling me in closer. Maybe, but this way I keep my mind busy. Besides, this was meant as a little bit of a distraction from a rather difficult conversation we probably should have. Oh? I raise my brow at him and he visibly cringes. It's about Father and Vither and a whole shitstorm, as you've put it, back at home. Basically everything Aerof and Taliesin brought up. I really had enough of politics for one day. I chuckle between the gulps of water. I barely follow their conversation as it was, but he seems to sulk each time the subject pops up. I'm too tired to drag our moods down. Can it wait until Strandbard? I guess. The wolf shrugs unconvincedly, and I'm not sure how to read that. Do you want to talk about it now? Not really. He sighs heavily. I'd rather enjoy the time we have left to ourselves. My thoughts exactly. I nod in agreement. Besides, I'd much rather talk about you and Tano than your father and Vither and the growing number of question marks surrounding them. Me and Tano? He blurts out, and I can swear there's a twinge of fear in his eyes. I'm sorry if this comes out of the blue. I mutter softly, drawing his groggy attention. I know it might be personal, but I was meaning to ask you about this for a while now. The wolf croons, his coarse voice reverberating through his throat against my skin. Would you be able to tell me what happened between the two of you? Your infamous fallout was bothering me for a week when you were away. Now that Aerof brought it up, I really don't want to talk about that. He pulls away slightly, his muzzle regaining alertness. It's all in the past anyway. I'm not trying to reopen any old wounds, but I really would like to get to know you more, past and all. Easy for you to say, you don't have a past to weigh you down. Ranok scoffs playfully in my direction, but I frown, and he quickly retracts the statement. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to downplay it. I envy you in that regard. It must feel liberating. It feels lonely and empty more than anything. I know very little about you, and even less about myself. I can't help it on my front. Would be nice to change it on yours. I fix my expectant gaze on him, and the wolf groans, rubbing his neck in annoyance. Ugh, I had hoped we could avoid this conversation altogether. Why? Because I'm afraid you'll think less of me. How could I? He's gay. I give him an encouraging smile. I doubt you did anything that could change my opinion of you. And even if you did, you'd still have a credit of trust and sympathy far exceeding anyone else's. Despite my honest words, he looks worriedly into the fire, and I place my hand on his shoulder. I spent nearly a week without you. In that time, I realized that despite not knowing you all that well, I want to be there for you, just as you've been there for me. In love or friendship, it doesn't really matter. I shake my head in amusement. All I want is to accept you for who you are, baggage and all, the good, the bad, and the frisky. My voice takes on a playful tone and I bite my lower lip, drawing a reluctant chuckle from the male. Who are you and what did you do with that trembling little kid I left at my cottage? Don't change the subject with backhanded flattery. I smirk, giving him a more serious look. Can't blame a wolf for trying. Was there something romantic between you and Tano? Is it that obvious? Oh my god. He raises his brow at me and I shrug awkwardly. Not at first, no, but the more I heard from others, the more apparent it became. What happened? I ask, and at first it seems he's not going to give me an answer. The wolf straightens up and looks into the fire, allowing a moment of silence to take over, until he finally breaks it in a hushed voice. Tano was my friend, a very close one. Closer than Vol. Don't ever tell him that. He snorts, but a heavy sigh quickly escapes his lips. But yes, he was. No one ever got as close to me as he did. Until I met you, that is. He bops his head in my direction. Tano saw me, just like you do, for who I am. A wolf who struggles with his place in the tribe. The more comfortable we became in each other's company, the more brazen and touchier we got. He made me discover things about myself I never dared to imagine. He made me realize that I was somewhat different than others. and that he was different too. The tone of his voice makes it clear he's still struggling with that side of him. I feel saddened as the wolf hangs his head between his knees, looking resigned into the dirt. Now, with you added into the mix, it's beyond doubt that I enjoy males as much as females. I even seem to have a type. He scoffs, aiming to lighten the mood, and I smile. Did you and Tano ever? I find myself stumbling on those words driven by my own curiosity. Not fully, but we did stuff. Sorry. The wolf mumbles apologetically, and I shake my head. Whatever for? It's not like we know him. It's not like we know him a first-timer. Yeah. We were quite young, and having sex, it clouded things. Made me less sensible, and I allowed everything to move too fast. It was intoxicating. He was intoxicating. But... I ask, drawing a wince from his muzzle. It's really hard for him to open up about this, but eventually he speaks up. Tano wanted more than I could possibly offer. I should have known better. I knew better. He chastises himself, poking angrily at his forehead. I knew who he was and how he acted. I knew him better than he himself did. I knew he was a pup that sees everything as a fucking game, and I still fell for it. Fell for what? His pretend maturity. I should have known he would not be able to handle things. What did he do? One night, he confessed his love, and I confessed mine. I did love him at the time. Ranok looks to me with all the seriousness he can muster, and I nod. I believe you. So, he proposed we elope, run off to some tigery town, and live our days happily ever after in an imaginary bliss. It seemed so outlandish and far-fetched, I thought it was just a heat-of-the-moment talk. So, like an idiot, I humored him and said that it did sound nice. The wolf cringes, and I have an inkling where this is heading. He always aims to please, never wanting to disappoint, even when sometimes it's the right thing to do. I smile at him empathetically and rub his arm, trying to give him courage to continue, and he does. And I said I should have known better. But at first, it seemed no damage was done. Just as I thought, he never brought it up again, and everything returned to normal. We did our duty, we met in secret, and everything was good. For the first time in my life, I was happy, and I didn't feel alone. He sighs with a soft smile, and my heart goes out to him. Despite not being there to witness his loneliness, I felt it through his desperate need for proximity. Having Tano around must have been a blessing he'd do anything to keep as long as possible. That's when the story deviates from my expectation and his tone sours. Over time, I noticed that Tano demanded more and more of me. I began neglecting my duty. I was shedding off responsibilities, all to appease him and give us some more quality time. Same for him. It was bad. Really bad. He mutters, rubbing his temples in clear frustration at his past failings. It had gotten to a point where he nearly lost his position as an alpha. That was a wake-up call for me, and I thought it would be one for him too. He says in a defeated tone. When he said he wanted to talk urgently, I hoped he wanted to work out how to fix things, so he met in secret underneath his name tree. At worst, I thought he finally saw sense and wanted to break it off. It would have hurt to lose what we had, but at least we could still remain friends and save our positions in the tribe. We were close to being discovered, with him getting more obvious and brazen with each passing week. It was as if he was tempting fate and trying to see how far he can push our luck. It would have spelled doom for us both. I nodded in understanding. But Tano didn't see a reason. Instead, he appeared almost insane. Out of nowhere, after 6 months of never bringing this up, he demanded that we run off that very night. We were to steal some gold from the villa and simply be on our way. The wolf scoffs mockingly, and I looked towards a heavy chest. I can't believe Tano would have gone that far, to suggest robbing his own people. It wasn't even formed as a suggestion or a request, it was a decision he made, claiming I've promised to follow through. But I never made such promise. He shakes his head and I place my hand on his shoulder. He heard what he wanted to hear, in my opinion, in the end didn't matter. Why would it? I wasn't a person at that point, I was an accessory. Subtle tremors rock his body, and I can't decide whether they're caused by anger or pain. His expression is equally dubious as his muzzle struggles to contain a slight snarl from appearing. He should have known that I would never be able to live my life in some tigery backwater with the knowledge that I have turned my back on my family and friends. My tribe, my people, he says spitefully, locking his gaze in some distance vision of Tano. How could he think that I would steal from my own father and live off that ill-gained money? Realizing he's slowly losing composure, the wolf cuts off and throws his gaze to the side. I try not to look at him directly, giving him some needed space to collect himself. He blinks away the moisture from his eyes and shakes his head, taking a deep breath. Once he releases all that pent-up tension through a sigh, he looks back to me with an apologetic expression. I'm sorry. No, it's fine. I shake my head in protest. What is he even apologizing for? I just couldn't believe what he was saying. Of all the wolves, how could he be the one to shrug it all off so easily? What do you mean? I ask and he blinks, as if realizing he had gone off topic. Sorry, it's a different story and it doesn't really matter. What matters is that I was wrong. He didn't know me at all, and turns out I didn't know him either. He took my idle response as an agreement, while I overestimated his actual feelings for me. The wolf sighs once again, hiding his muzzle in the palm of his paws. It was Vol and Varissa all over again. All we were to each other was our respective roles in the tribe. All Tano wanted and cared about was having the son of the chief in his pocket. How else would he get to pilfer the tribe's treasury? I should have never humored his delusions. I'm not picking his side here. I mutter quietly, ruffling his neck fluff. But Tano doesn't strike me as evil. Calculative, desperate, maybe, but not cruel for cruelty's sake. I do believe he was misguided, but... I pause, not sure if it's my place or even time to challenge him. But... The wolf asks, and I decide to follow Aerof's hard truths policy. You do tend to dance around the truth a lot, trying to protect other people's feelings. Had you simply told him no the first time around? How could I have possibly known he was being serious? He snaps defensively. Had he brought it up again, I would have said no, but he didn't. To me, it was just pup talk. Am I to treat everything everyone says literally? No, you're right. I'm sorry. I sigh, looking away into the fire, and the wolf hides his muzzle back into his paws. I might be projecting my own insecurities again, applying my experience to a situation I didn't witness. Even knowing you barely had 2 weeks, I would have never fooled myself that you would run off with me. I'm not saying I'm blameless. We were both to blame, that's true. He concedes through a sigh, raising his head to face me. But there's a difference between omission and delusion. I tried to reason with him, begged even. I wanted us to stay together and continue as we were, but he refused. He got angry and harsh words were exchanged. I felt like the only thing left for me to do was to break it off. Ranok pauses, looking to the side as if trying to reason with himself now. We clearly brought out the worst in each other, and I couldn't watch him throw his life away like this. Not because of me. So I did the hardest thing I ever had. I told him it was over. In as plain words as I could possibly muster. And then I walked away. He hangs his head again. It broke my heart to leave him huddled and crying in the woods, but it had to be done. I frown, trying to imagine the scene, and despite understanding Ranok's side of the story, I can't help but feel a bit sorry for the White Wolf, even if he brought this on himself. I just sit there, uncertain what to say, and Ranok simply continues. It took all my strength to collect myself and go back to the feast, appearing normal and happy. I'm so sorry. Don't be. Not yet. He shakes his head with a forced chuckle. If you think that's the end of the story, you clearly don't know Tano. He's the ride or die sort of person. What did he do? I push my hand against my lips, getting unnerved by what might come next. Knowing Tano as little as I do, I still can see that the wolf can be quite unpredictable at times. After some hours passed, he arrived at the feasting grounds drunk and very feisty. He was picking fights left, right, and center. Delron, always the older brother to us all, stood up and tried to pacify him, but Tano had none of it. He pushed him away and approached our table, stealing Vol's mug, emptying it in a long, disgusting chug that stained his fur all the way to his pants. I cringe, suffering secondhand embarrassment. He must have been a mess, but can I blame him? He was just dumped. Jeez. Vol was pissed, more so when Tano simply threw the mug back at him, squaring off. What the hell? He said, "You want to do this, big guy? Come on, I've got nothing to lose." He mimics Tano's mannerisms, but quickly frowns in clear distress. It stung to see him like this. It hurt to know I was the cause of it. And just as Vol was about to accept the challenge, I interceded. I asked him to let it go, saying that Tano had simply too much to drink. But that's when his attention shifted to me. Right then and there, he confronted me with all the cards in the open. Oh no. He proclaimed his love for me, revealed that we had planned to elope together and be happy away from this bigoted, close-minded shithole. And then... He pauses, pulling me to the edge of my seat. And then what? He crawled onto the table, brushing off the food as he went and leaped at me, kissing in front of everyone. Oh God! I exclaim in utter horror. I thought their fallout would have been something spectacular for the village to be abuzz with it to this day, but never I'd imagined Tano would have gone this far. I was stunned. It didn't mean to be cold, but the shock aided me in saving what little I could of our joint reputation. You must understand, if I didn't do anything, we both would have gotten banished. He sounds panicked, clearly worried I might think less of him. that whatever came next came out of spite or malice, but I know him better. Of course, I say reassuringly, nodding in agreement. I pushed him away, wiped my lips clean, and laughed it off. Volt didn't see the humor in that scene and hurled Tano violently into the dirt. He sighs, clearly not enjoying reliving that night. To be fair, I begin to regret asking in the first place. It sounds like a nightmare. Everyone was looking at me with confusion and fright. Up to that point, we were very close, so I had to make up a story to banish any speculation. I panicked. The wolf cringes and looks away in shame. I made up a lie, that Tano's advances were rejected by a female and that he's been drowning his sorrows in my ale, crying over my shoulder. That's when Cora rushed to my side, knowing full well what's at stake. He locks his glossy eyes with me. I think deep down she knew the truth. She just couldn't watch her two friends' little secret unravel, so she leaped into the fray like a true she-wolf she is. He smiles, a clear hint of pride directed at the tawny female. She backed me up, stating that it was she who rejected Tano, and because she chose me instead, he got incredibly bitter and sought ways to get back at us. We both played him off as a drunken boy with a broken heart who simply had too much to drink and wanted to prank me. It was cruel. Ranok sighs angrily, clearly unhappy with himself. It was cruel, but not that far from the truth. You shouldn't feel bad. You were saving him from himself. By breaking his heart twice over? He asks mockingly, his eyes filling up with tears once again. Why does saving others always mean breaking their hearts? That question catches me off guard. The look in his eyes still haunts me, but if forced, I would do it all over again. I cannot even imagine. Oh God, Ranok, I'm so sorry. Is this where I need to censor? I decide to finally embrace him, and the wolf pats my arm in gratitude for the gesture. I can't believe Tano would have resorted to public blackmail to force someone out of the closet in front of all his family and peers. It's disgusting. A person's sexuality is no one's secret to reveal. Not like this, not to coerce them to remain at your side. But despite feeling angered and disgusted with Tano, there's still a large part of me that feels pity. Losing Ranok must have felt horrible. Almost as if we're cornered, and cornered beasts tend to lash out. I really don't know what to make of this story. Ranok's and Cora's lie might have saved his life, but I doubt Tano would see it this way. We stay in our embrace for a moment while the wolf takes all this turmoil and pain and packs it back deep into a dark corner of his psyche, where it should have remained undisturbed. Their rift runs deeper than I could have possibly imagined, but it's clear Ranok still holds some deep sentiment towards a white male. He constantly goes out of his way to defend him. Perhaps it's just guilt, or perhaps a tiny part of him still loves him. Cora was right. They're both at fault. But Tano being who he is doesn't make bridging that gap any easier. Eventually, Ranok exhales heavily and pulls away. Now you know the truth, and why he's so resentful when it comes to me. Despite managing to save our hides, his reputation was harder to recover. After all, he was the one who kissed me, and I did not reciprocate. With Cora's made-up rejection added to the mix, it made him look very undesirable. But he left us no choice. It was either ridicule or banishment. Actually, I think secretly he wanted us to get banished, he says in a sad tone. It would have forced the original plan onto you. Wolf nods in resignation. Since then, he was secretly mocked. He feels betrayed and made a fool, and rightfully so. But I feel used and manipulated all the same. That's something he never even apologized for. There is a clear tone of bitterness in his words, and I place my hand atop his still shaky paw. To this day, he thinks he's the one who lost everything, but I was no better off. I was happy with him, and we could have been happy together. But it wasn't enough, was it? With Tano, nothing is ever enough. He must have it all, or none can have anything. So, here we are. He shrugs, displaying his paws in defeat. I think you two need to work this out. I mumble worriedly, but he just throws me a stern look. There's nothing to work out. Tano always wants his way, and he always forces it, no matter the consequence. I know I said you're my first real choice, and now, given all the information, you might think that it was a lie, that I had one with him. I listen to him intently as he infers some of my concerns. But that was an impossible choice to make. It wasn't real. It was a childish, selfish delusion. He sneers. I would never shrug off my duty or my responsibility on a whim or for a flight of fancy. True relationships are built between people who understand their place in the world and who want to share it. Trying to find love while running away from responsibility is like building on quicksand. I nod at his apt summary. I wholeheartedly agree. You can't run away from who you are, and you cannot let others strong-arm you into change. That's why I chose you. He smiles weakly. You came into my life with no expectations or demands. In fact, you were at my mercy. Saving your life was a choice I made while you were unconscious. You didn't ask nor demand it. You've also shown such immense gratitude for the most benign of things. I know that your memory is partially to blame, but you want to be there for me, without knowing who I am or even caring for my position in life. You made me feel safe, and I'm certain that despite our precarious situation, you won't force me to choose between you and my people. Because above all else, you took the time to understand me, who I am, and what's important to me. Of course. I nod again. I would never seek to divide your loyalties or attention. I'm here to just be there for you, to help you along the path you've been set upon. All this turn in your tribe, your family, and friends is what makes you you. It's a package deal, and I would not have it any other way. I'm sorry you were forced to make such a choice before. That's not what love is. Thank you. Thank you for listening and understanding. He leans his muzzle in and plants a soft lick on my cheek. Thank you for sharing. I reply, sinking into his neck fluff and enjoying his now muskier than before scent. As I remain there, I think of something to lighten the mood. Tano's pup name is Snowball, isn't it? I ask teasingly, and the wolf blinks in surprise, looking away and acting as if he didn't hear the question. But that change in his posture indicates slight tension, which means I'm right. I take it as a yes. Don't ever call him that, he states in an oddly pleading tone. It's not a command, but a thoughtful request, and I'm taken by surprise. Others seem to do it all the time. They shouldn't. He sighs heavily. It's a sign of lack of respect, and it's all fallout of his drunken confession. I might not like him, but he's gotten petty and bitter and constantly tries to get back at people. But at the same time, it's not hard to take some responsibility for it. Somewhere there is still the wolf I used to love. Yeah, it sort of does that. I wouldn't worry too much about it. I nearly choke up at his words. Such a good boy. I know that each time he's pup named, it hurts his pride. And now that's all he's got left. Even at odds, he's still mindful of others. Perhaps it's not what I'm meant to do here, but if there's even a chance to fix their friendship, I'd like to help if possible. I don't know if Tano really moved on. His actions at the feast seem now falling into the jealous ex territory. And I'm not sure Ranok is very much over it either. Maybe he moved on from their relationship, but not from the breakup. That loss will haunt him for a long while, and how couldn't it? I can't even begin to imagine how I would have dealt with such a shit show. I thought you were impossibly brave after you told me of the battle. Now I know you're all kinds of brave. I wish I was made of as sturdy stuff as you are. You think I'm brave? He snorts, pulling me away and looking into my eyes. His green emeralds shine in the light of the fireplace as he leans in to give me yet another lick. Life seems to constantly send the same blows my way, and each time I falter. I'm a half-collapsed shack propped up on stilts. Well then, I don't mind me a fixer-upper. I chuckle, drawing a reluctant smile from the wolf. He leans into me, and I reach with my hand behind his head, scratching at his fluff idly. His tense body just shows how much stress and burden overloads this poor guy. I wish I could somehow relieve it, but I'm at a loss for words. All I can do is what I came to want to do in the first place, be there for him. So I resign myself to simply stay in his tight embrace, just enjoying the feeling of being wanted and needed. We stay like that for a while until I notice his bulge expanding slightly inside his pants and pressing against me. I'm sorry. He pulls away embarrassed, but my hand guides him right back. Don't be. It's a compliment, if anything. His green, shimmering emeralds lock with me in slight disbelief, and I shiver. It's as if he's peering into my very soul, and then suddenly, he dives in for a kiss. I leaned into him, pressing my body against his rock-hard frame. He's groping me, his massive his massive paws cupping my butt cheeks, toying with them playfully as we continue to interlock our lips. His hold gets firmer and he stands up, effectively lifting me up, and I wrap my legs around his waist. It's exhilarating to be held like this, cradled against his torso, and I groan with pleasure, feeling the...
Self-voicing enabled. It's exhilarating to be held like this, cradled against his torso, and I groan with pleasure, feeling the bulge poking at my underside. Self-voicing disabled.
He stumbles a few steps towards the tents, when suddenly, as if touched by a magic wand, his excitement vanishes and he lets go. I fall to my feet, standing in front of him completely dazed and confused. I can't. He mutters apologetically, but I simply grab his paw. It's fine, we don't have to go all the way. But, Kaylin... No buts. I pout playfully. You've left me hanging once already. You know I want it. I whisper enticingly, gently groping his groin. And I know you want it too. Oh, by the moon. He groans as a shudder radiates across his entire... Oh, God. His eyes dilute and his fur bristles as if electrified. My heart skips a beat when his primal gaze lands on me, but I do not fear him. Instead, I tug gently at his pants with a soft... Oh, dear God. Let's get the... Oh, God. I'm just going to hide the entire fucking screen. Taking over, and I find it so exciting and simply exhale as I undo his pants. I'm certain. He doesn't need more. The wolf pounces on me as if I were a cornered fawn, his muzzle sinking into my neck. His nipping at my skin, gently pricking it with his fangs until he leaves a red indentation. Then he licks over in an attempt to kiss them better. I melt into his form and surrender, allowing him to caress my most vulnerable... Oh, dear God. Something undeniably erotic about a massive wolf man gliding his dagger-like fangs across her windpipe. It's an utter surrender to his most basic animal instincts, and I trust him to remain in control. Once he left several red spots, he licks his lips as if he tasted the most delectable of treats and looks at me intently. Come. Just one word. That's all it takes for me to follow him into the tent. You weren't lying. The wolf splays himself comfortably against the backpack, every muscle in his body tensed as he stretches his hands behind his head. My heart speeds up, and despite thinking just a moment ago, I feel parched. Oh, dear God. Blow. Oh, God. I mutter reassuringly, uncertain what's actually going on, unwittingly causing the wolf to jump up in panic. What's the matter? Shit. I can't do this. Not again. His voice becomes shakier, and I know now that something's wrong. He's wavering. I can feel it through his deflated posture. Ranok, it's okay. I mutter encouragingly, stroking his cheek, but he brushes my hand away. No, this isn't right. We shouldn't have done that. He sounds increasingly panicked, and I blink. Why wouldn't it be? You don't have to be ashamed. It's okay to have those feelings. It's not that. Well, what is it then? Because if it's no, this defective nonsense again, you're not coming back with me. Excuse me, what the fuck? He spits out angrily through deep rattled breaths as if it took all his strength to get it out of his chest. What do you mean? I'm taking you to Strandbar to leave you there. What? I pull myself away from him, sitting up and looking at the wolf who avoids my gaze. My eyes gloss at the sight of his defeated expression. He's serious. You can't! I say pleadingly, putting my hand on his paw, but he retracts it as if burned by my touch. I must! His coarse voice snaps in my direction. He's barely keeping composure. That's what my father wants. That's what he demands. Even if it were up to me, I would not knowingly drag you back there. How can you say that? You think this is some sort of den tale? How do you think this story would end? Ranok, what are you saying? Tears now flow freely from my eyes, two heavy streaks burdening my cheeks, and the wolf looks away in shame. He covers his crotch with the loincloth, trying to bring some dignity to the situation, but I'm long past that. I sit there, naked and sobbing, disbelief rocking my body. We need to face the reality of things. His hushed voice barely reaches my ears. Your life is in danger. Every day the noose gets tighter around your neck, and you tug at it like an oblivious pup. I didn't do anything. You've done plenty. The green eyes lock with me in anger, his accusatory tone bolstering his resolve almost as if he sought courage to do what has to be done. Not only Aldris is infuriated with you, but now even Vithar wants you gone. My father was never even remotely religious. The only reason Varissa's bluff worked on him was the fact it could cause a fuss. Well, you caused more than a fuss. The wolf throws his arms into the distance. More than half of the tribe just waits for an excuse to be done with you. With Thandalt on the loose and Volst close to snapping your neck, our situation becomes untenable. You can't be serious. I barely speak up as the air is kicked out of my lungs. Your presence alone puts us all in danger. If somehow you manage to keep your head, there's still a war coming. You've heard yourself that my father might lose his position in part thanks to you. Should that happen, your death is all but certain. It's just a matter of when and by whose paws. I won't watch you being executed. Especially not if my friends can be next to follow. How can you say this? You know it's true. His voice wavers again, and like a goaded beast, I decide to strike back. So you waited until I gave you head to tell me this. What the fuck? He cringes at the words, which means he knows how this looks. I tried to talk with you. I tried to stop. Not hard enough. I spit out. You're an asshole. How could you lie to me like this? What was all this camping? What was all this carefree camping bullshit for? You should have told me from the beginning what's happening. I knew you wouldn't take it well. So you just pretended that everything is fine? Duped me? No. Ranok hangs his head, looking his worried gaze with the padding beneath us. I wanted to make sure I'll go through with it. If we talked it over in the village, there was a chance you would sway me one way or the other. So you just took that chance away from me. I lash out, tears cascading down on my knees, causing the wolf to snap back. I cannot risk your life or anyone else's on a whim. Someone has to be the responsible one, and that someone always has to be me. You've promised to take me home. You've promised the very first night. And where is home exactly, huh? The wolf asks mockingly. You show no signs of actually recovering any memory. I cannot be saddled with you forever. Saddled? Is that what I am to you? A burden? You know what I mean. His anger wavers as his eyes desperately tries to lock on anything else than me. No, I don't. You can't do this to me. I do it for you, he protests. Everyone's right. You stand far better chances of finding your place in this world in Strandbar than cooped up in my cottage. Is that what you say to yourself? I scoff in anger. That you're being selfless, because to me it seems like you're just a coward who cannot truly commit to anything or anyone. I let my words hang, my chest rising and falling in quick succession. I cannot believe him. Why didn't you tell me? I demand, and he meets me with a defiant gaze. Because I didn't want our last few days to be ruined by this. I knew you'd be broken and bargaining each step of the way. You would be chipping at my resolve with each passing day until I finally gave in or snapped. He does everything he can to keep himself from breaking down. If I told you right away, those last few days would have turned into a nightmare. At least I would have had time to come to terms with it, something you took away from me. You took away my right to say proper goodbyes with Varissa, Cora. Am I keeping it until the very last moment? You took away my right to be angry with you, because now I'm ruining our final moments together. I force all the spitefulness into my gaze, and the anger slowly boiling up to the surface shuts down my waterworks. He's startled, seeing my little rattled chest going up and down while my teeth chatter in fury. You've lied and manipulated me. Now I understand how Tano must have felt. Really? He asks, utterly stunned. You're going to use that against me? I told you this in confidence. I was not the villain of that story. His lips quiver and his eyes shine with clear hurt. But you're not the victim either. You forced me to face a done deal, just like he did to you. I'm in an impossible situation here. Oh, boo-hoo. I'm the one left without a choice. You're angry. I understand why you lash out, so I won't hold it against you. Don't. I clench my fists, trembling with anger like I've never felt before. Don't you high-horse me. What does that even mean? He scoffs. I'm trying to make it as easy as... No, I can't do this. I cut him off, getting up to my feet and collecting my clothes. What are you doing? Getting away from you. I can't bear to look at your face. I walk towards the exit when his paws clench around my wrist, stopping me in my tracks. You can't. It's not safe. Go to hell, Ranok. I try to yank myself free, but his hold stays firm. The wolf issues a warning growl and throws me onto the bedding. No, you'll stay right here. He thumps his feet in anger, towering above me, and for an instant I'm reminded he's a massive beast man with shining claws and fangs. I'm not going to spend the night with you. Fine. He snarls. If you insist on acting like a pup, then I'll leave. I won't have your blood on my paws in case something happens. Yes, we wouldn't want to add anything to your already heavy conscience. I jeer at him with all the nastiness I can muster, melting away his anger and replacing it with deep and indescribable sadness. I'll just stay here, surrounded by your jizz. His green eyes lock with me for a moment, darting across my body in confusion as if looking for the right words. But eventually the wolf gives up the search and simply sighs deeply, pulling on the tense cloth. Think what you must. Hate me if you will. His voice is low and devoid of life. I didn't want this. I tried to resist and to be respectful, but I failed. That's on me. Letting you go is the hardest thing I have had to do since Tano. But ultimately, I know it's the right thing. For everyone involved. Seriously, Ranok, get the fuck out of here. I slam my fist into the bedding and the wolf abides. He picks up his loincloth and pants, leaving the tent with one last sad look in my direction. Once I'm alone, I allow my anguish to claim me, unloading wave after wave of tears and howling like an injured beast into the pillow. I'm in pain and the anguished tremors rock my entire body. Once again, I'm thrown into a pit of despair. I'm in mourning. In mourning over the life I once had and the one I imagined I could have. I'm grieving over losing the very person that just hurt me so badly. Indeed, despite the anger at this fucked up situation, what hurts the most is the fact I'll never see him again. I'll never see any of them again. Minutes turn into hours and I continuously sob with no sign of reprieve. Eventually, all falls silent and the fire goes out. Everything fades into darkness on this moonless night. Everything but me. If there were ever a moment for nothingness to claim me, it is now. But that would be mercy, and mercy is not what's meant for me. Broken heart is the sweetest of things. You must be loving this, you twisted motherfucker. I squeeze the bedding tightly, hearing my palms audibly strain at the exercise. Of all the moments, of course, it's this one when the whisper returns. Despair, so delicious. Fuck you. If Ranok didn't break me, then surely you won't do it. Go back to poorly imitating children's books. I have my own poorly written romance to live through. This newfound resolve allows me to stabilize myself. My breath slows down and I decide that indeed Ranok won't break me. I won't give him the satisfaction. I won't be Tano huddled in the dirt, nor trying to force him to see my value. I wanted to stay at his side, to aid him through better or worse. If he doesn't want that, that's his choice. I'm better than this, and if he cannot see it, it's his loss, not mine. And with that, I finally drift to a strange sleep. That's a thing. Yep, that's something. Could not find label. What? I'm like confused. Like what the hell is happening? Let me try going to the main menu. Hold up. I think this is actually, like, where it is next. Like, where it continues. I think this is where it continues. Is it? I don't know. To my surprise, no nightmares follow. I half expected the whispers to be rubbing this in my face. Instead, I wake up shivering to a chilly, harsh morning, and the sun doesn't shine. How fitting. After our grim exchange the previous night, the gray skies above reflect my mood perfectly. Although we're hidden deep inside a thicket shielded by the woodland canopy, I can still see the distant clearing droplets cascading down and splattering against the dirt. It's raining. It seems the last leg of our journey will be the most arduous, both on account of our soured moods, but also the unpleasant weather. It's much colder than any other day so far, and I assume it's because we're at the forest edge. Versa did say that Turner had its own microclimate, and now I get to experience it firsthand with the world at large firmly in the grips of winter winds. I've left for breakfast by the fire. The wolf pokes his head inside the tent, most likely hearing me stirring up from my sleep. His expression is appropriately solemn, but I don't care for it one bit. I throw my gaze away, letting him know that we're not on talking terms anymore, and the wolf leaves. I have half hoped that he'd run off into the night, leaving me here to die alone. He might as well have, as nothing makes sense now. What am I even supposed to do? How am I supposed to survive in this foreign world alone? I'm so embarrassed looking at the now crusty covers marked by his release, and anger stirs up inside me again. Just a plaything. Exactly. I got him off and he fucking dropped such a bombshell and bolts. Who the fuck does he think he is? Used without remorse. Yes, he did use me. That fucker no, wait, no. Fuck. I slam my fist into the bedding. Again, my emotions are running riot, and that damned thing tries to ramp them up. I'm not even allowed to process this mess on my own. But no, I won't play into my anger. He didn't use me, I wanted it. In fact, he was reluctant. We both gave in to our carnal desires, that's no one's fault. But he hit a decision that was made for me, one that very much affects my entire life moving forward, and I wasn't even consulted. He duped me. Like an unwanted pup, I was lulled into a false sense of love and security just to be led away on a leash and left in the hands of a complete stranger. But if he thinks I'll be begging for him to take me back, he's got another thing coming. Both you and him can suck it. I'm done being played. Begrudgingly, I remove the covers and get ready. Once my cloak is secured, I'm somewhat shielded from the elements. I step outside and walk up to the still sizzling pan. Bacon and eggs with a slice of fire-roasted bread. It was good enough for our first breakfast, might as well be our last. I sit down and grab a fork, poking at the eggs with suspicion. I don't remember us bringing those. Found a pheasant nest. The wolf butts in, clearly noticing me toying with the food, and my expression betrays an obvious concern at his apparent egg napping. Don't worry, I've only taken half of them. Gives a better chance for the rest of the brood. He shakes his head, but I still look at the pan unconvinced, drawing an exasperated sigh from the male. Believe me or not, but pheasants lay around 10 to 12 eggs. Once they hatch, it's just a game of numbers. Rarely more than 3 chicks survive. This way, the mother will have fewer mouths to feed and will be able to care for them better. As always, he finds an answer for everything to do with forestry. I might be angry with him, but I shouldn't put his life's work and education into question, so I decide to shrug it off and dig in. As always, the breakfast is delicious, and despite my bitterness, it's a pretty welcome start to this otherwise gloomy day. I can't really tell the difference between the pheasant eggs and regular ones. They taste the same to me. The only thing turning my stomach is the fact that it's filled with his jizz, and the running yolk constantly reminds me of that. I hate that he made breakfast, again going out of his way and foraging so early in the morning. Why does he always have to do this? To be thoughtful and so extra, even when he's in the proverbial doghouse. Makes being angry with him this much harder and upsetting, almost as if I'm the bad guy here. I finish the food in silence, wiping away stray droplets that make past the leafy rooftop above while the wolf begins to pull up our camp. Despite our fight, I decide to aid him. I might be seething on the inside, but how being petty would help in this situation. Besides, I want to get to the city as soon as possible. Spending another night out here would have been a nightmare. Once everything's folded and packed, we get on the way. Miles add up one by one, with Ranok trying to casually start an idle conversation every now and then, but I simply shut them all down with cold glances. I don't want small talk, I think we're past that. Scattered splotches of drizzle reaching the road from up ahead makes me realize we're approaching the edge of Turnin. The tree line is slowly thinning, and there's an apparent brightness of open space ahead of us. When within an hour we finally reach the opening, I stop and gasp. The forest just ends abruptly, forming an arched entryway made up of the canopy linking above. I look back to the sylvan road cutting into the woods like a tunnel, seeming almost like an entry to the secret garden. In front of us there is a rolling landscape dotted with fields, pastures, and border greenery separating them. It's oh so enchanting and open. The vast openness is what speaks to me the most. There's a sense of freedom, but also a free fall as I gaze into the distance. Never did I realize how constrained everything seems within a forest. You cannot see the horizon, so everything feels local and compact. This is like looking down a deep well where you don't see the bottom. It's exciting. I take a deep, greedy breath of this newfound sense of freedom, resting my hand on a mossy carved stone on the roadside. Much different from the milestones we've passed so far. Only now I actually paid any mind. It's a stale. Pronounce that. Decorated with knotted patterns and slight stylized wolves and moons. There's a partially faded inscription in the middle, but it doesn't prove too hard to read. Here begins the ancient realm of Turnin, safe from trespasses since times immemorial, and the woven tribes keep it and try to imperil. Well, that's inviting. I mutter under my breath, the first words spoken by me since yesterday. At first the wolf's taken aback, but quickly decides not to make much of a deal of it and shrugs. It's a border stone. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. Warn strangers of consequence. Strangers like me. My voice is cold and sharp as the morning itself, but Ranok clearly has no patience for it. Look, I really don't want to argue. You know why you cannot remain. Yep, the stone is making it quite clear. You're acting like a pup. It's not only your life on the line. He sneers and I open my eyes in shock as the wolf storms off. So that's how it is, to him. I'm just a liability. You think you are strong, and perhaps you are. I say, sluggishly following him down the road and grabbing his reluctant attention. You're certainly stronger than I am, or anyone I've met in the village for that matter. But strength alone can only take you so far. No one's ever an island. Think of me what you must. I've already left one loved one huddled in the dirt, and I'm about to do that to another. You cannot hate me more than I already hate myself twice over. He gives me a side glance for a brief moment, his green trembling eye drilling into me, but he quickly shakes his head and speeds up the tempo. There really isn't much sense in us talking anymore. What else is there to say? He has made up his mind, and I have no cards to play. I give Turnin one last heavy look, laden with the troubling fact that the mighty sea of trees will fade away forever with each new step I take. I'm not just torn away from the only place I know or can even remotely call home, but I was also denied the right to say proper goodbyes. Verissa got one, as I think she was on this whole chagrin, judging by her odd behavior. But Vol, Trist, even Cora? On their account, I'm distraught, and it makes this ordeal that much harder to forgive. I don't even know if they would care that I'm gone. I am truly lost. Our uneasy journey continues in this lackluster downpour. It neither rains nor it's dry. It's very humid, and one gets soaked in trudging through it all, almost as if water were suspended in the air. I try to distract myself from all this misery, but it gets harder with each passing hour. I'm exhausted, even without this emotional strain. The journey itself would have taken a toll on me. I'm tired, uncomfortable, sad, and angry. I fear that my emotions are slowly boiling up to a breaking point, and with the whispers at the back of my mind, I don't want to lose control of my tongue. To distract myself, I simply turn towards the scenery, trying to take in the surroundings, but it's a very depressing sight. Even without the rain and the overcast, it would have been gloomy. This land is impoverished, with Spare's farmsteads not differing much from the woven hovels. The fences are not mended, and some rooftops have clearly missing patches of thatching, while other houses look outright abandoned. It's a sorry scene indeed, with barely a living soul in sight. Not at all what I expected the mighty land of tigers to look like. I resign myself to our solitary march, deciding that there's not much joy or encouragement to draw from sightseeing. But that's when we're both startled by a sudden voice coming up from behind one of the stone walls flanking the road. We're gonna leave off here tonight. I'm fucking pissed. I'm so angry. Yeah. Oh my god. Anyways, I'm gonna hop off and then immediately hop back on to do the tier list. No, I was like, took everything to just not walk away. Just not stand up and walk away. Oh no, I already have like strong opinions of them. Those opinions aren't going to change. Much as I hate to say it. Yeah. But anyways, if you're not going to stay for the tier list, stay safe, have a good night. And I'll see you tomorrow, and if you are staying, then I will see you in a few minutes.